It's Platt, and today we try a Doppelbock from a classic German brewer. That's next on Platt's Beer of the Week. So the particular beer we have today is Salvator from Paulaner Brewing. We previously reviewed their Oktoberfest, another classic German style of beer. A little background to Paulaner. Paulaner was founded by the Paulaner Order of Monks, or also the Order of Minims. It's a monastery that was based in the Munich area. Oddly enough, the first beer the monks started producing was this Salvator here. This is their very first brew. Now, we don't know for sure when they started brewing. We do know this beer falls under or complies with the German Beer Purity Law of 1516. We don't know if it was brewed before or after then. There was really no records of that. Actually, the first official record of this beer came all the way in 1634 at a city council meeting. Apparently, the monks, when they brew a batch of beer, if they had extra, they would either give it to the poor, imagine doing that today, or they would sell. They actually had a pub on the grounds of the monastery, and they would sell to the public. This actually agitated local commercial brewers, and they took the issue to the city council there in 1634, and there was enough pushback that the monks were finally told, no more, no mas, and that they couldn't basically give the beer to the public. They could brew it for themselves, but don't hand it out to the public. And it pretty much stayed that way for the next 100 years or so, until finally in 1751 they were granted permission on basically their founder's day, or each year they would celebrate the day the monastery was founded. They were allowed to sell and hand out to the public on that day. Now, the monks got a little proactive, and one of the things they did was they wanted to keep in good standing with the local politicians, so they would invite the local electors to the ceremony, and they would get to tap the beer and have the first pints out of the freshly christened kegs. This must have done something, because by the time 1780 rolls around, the monks were finally granted permission to become a full brewery and actually sell to the public. Now, unfortunately for the monks in the monastery, that did not last long, because in 1806, the monastery was closed and sold to a gentleman named Frank Xavier Zackrel. Hopefully I didn't butcher that too bad. This is actually an issue today with some of the Belgian Trappist beers. Just people aren't wanting to become monks, and these monasteries are closing more and more every day. And that's a trend that's been going on a long time, even back in 1806. Move ahead to 1851, and the Zackrel family decided it was time to expand. They started expanding the brewery. Actually, for a while, the beer was referred to as Zackrel Brow. Now, they didn't change the name of the brewery or anything like that. It was just kind of how it was referred to for a little while there. Things kept chugging along for about the next century or so, until unfortunately there was a little thing called World War II, which did not work out well for our friends in Germany. In 1944 specifically, the brewery was partially destroyed, damaged, and post-war Germany took a little time to rebuild, so it wasn't until 1950 that the brewery came back online. Skip ahead to 1979, and the brewery was sold. The Zackrel family sold it to another family. I want to butcher this name, but Schwarghuber family purchased the brewery, and they are still the majority stockholder today. I do believe a Heineken subsidiary owns a small chunk of the stock, but the majority is still with the family today. In 1986, Paulaner released Weizsäcker Weiss beer. It was the first non-alcoholic wheat beer to make it to the marketplace. Now, today, Paulaner has a small line of beers, kind of sticking to the classic German styles. They still all fit under the German beer purity laws. They do a Weiss, a Dunkelweiss, the Oktoberfest, which we've tried before. They have a Münchner Helles, or Munich-style lager, and of course the Salvator here. Paulaner is one of 6 breweries that gets to sell their beer and dispense it at the official Oktoberfest celebration there in Munich. They're also one of the top 6 selling breweries there, so I guess they're kind of part of the big 6 breweries there in Germany. Well, before we try this particular beer, though, let's check out the stats. So today I thought we would talk about the style of Doppelbock. It's one of my favorite styles, but it's not a hugely popular style of beer. The term Doppelbock translates into double bock. Now, we're not doubling the ABV. A traditional bock is going to be somewhere in the high fives to around 6% alcohol by volume. Doppelbocks generally go from the mid sixes up to about 8% alcohol by volume. So we're not doubling, but it's a little bigger, a little higher ABV beer. Probably starts getting to the point where you kind of notice it, the alcohol a little bit, or maybe get a slight warming. IBUs were from 17 to 27, SRM 12 to 30. This beer gets darker, but it doesn't get black. We're talking about color range, somewhere from copper to a darker brown. Not light copper, more medium copper and a little darker. Even though it's higher ABV beer, this is soft body. This is still a very drinkable style of beer. Not high. It's low on carbonation. This is not a bottle of yellow fizzy water for sure on that. There's no real hop aroma in these styles of beer. Very low hop flavor or bitterness. Malt is the predominant thing you'll notice on these beers. Just there's hops for balance, pretty much. Food pairing wise, you're going to pair this with pork, ham, strong cheeses. This is a strong beer. It can stand up to stronger food. It's kind of fascinating, unique, but it does make sense why the monks chose this style of beer to brew first. Monks back then would do these fasts for sometimes up to a month, and the only calories they would get would be from the beer. So you wouldn't want to do just a really light beer with not a lot of calories. You wanted a bigger mash bill that had more malt in there, that had more carbs. You get a little protein out of there. And I remember reading an article about a gentleman that had done one of these 30-day beer fasts. And this was the style of beer that he chose just because, again, the additional calories gave him additional nourishment. So, again, kind of makes some sense there. Well, that being said, let's drink a little liquid bread. All right. We get a little more than a finger's with the head. That is a dark copper with a little brown to it. Almost a little amberish too. Yeah, that's all malt. No, you're not getting much hop. Light khaki head color. Let's dive in. Oh my gosh, that is good. There's just enough of those darker malt notes in there. You start to get to some of that dark fruit. Yeah, the plum, stuff like that. But you get the deep kind of toffee and caramel along with that dark fruit. But it's not dark enough where we start picking up some of the coffee and chocolate and more astringent type notes. This is still plenty of nice malt sweetness there, but it's more complex, it's more depth. Oh my gosh, this is just nice and interesting. And the thing is, the flavor, like when the taste is hitting your mouth, you want to think, oh, this is kind of a big, viscous beer because there's a lot of flavor going on, but it's not. It goes down fairly easy. Not a hugely long finish, lots of flavor, but it doesn't sit on the palate a long time. But man, this is a good beer. Oh God, I should have picked up a 6-pack. Well, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please subscribe down below. Also, please like the video because it lets YouTube know we're putting out good content. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or beers that you'd like me to try, please leave them in the comment section, or you can always contact me on the Twitter page. Until next time, bottoms up.